This is the Lime Flavored Show, episode 7 for February 18th, 2013. I am your host, DJ Allen. You can marvel at my beard once again, if you can see it. It's still here because it's still cold where I'm at. I've got a short topic today, one that I wanted to get out and put out there and actually get some feedback on, because I am not the youngest potato in the patch. I don't know if that works, but I'm not. I'm 37, and I have certain theories about how the youth of today is. Now, well, let me go into that. The youth of today, specifically, I feels entitled. Like things are owed to them. Now, and let me identify that the youth that I'm speaking of are those younger than 30. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone that's 29 and younger feels entitled. What that means is that everyone who feels entitled seems to be under that age. That's what I'm saying. So just because you are under 30 right now does not mean I think that you feel entitled. It means that everyone that feels entitled seems to be under 30. I can somewhat identify with these people, as I also felt entitled before I reached a certain age. I felt that going through life, picking up, let's see, the best way I can say, if life is an organization, and I pick it up, I went through and I picked up all the badges I thought I needed to move on to the next rank, and well, that's not really how it works. You have to have character, not be a character, and that's something I got from Richard Marcinko, who is one of my personal heroes, because of his philosophy. I don't necessarily agree with his methods all the time, but the philosophy is definitely there that I liked. Once I personally identified that I was someone who felt entitled, I realized that I needed to change the way I did things. And for at least the last 5 years, more than likely 7, maybe a little longer, but at least the last 5 years, I try to earn what I get now. So, for instance, at one point, I thought that after I had gone through at a specific job, I thought that once I had gone through a certain length of time and a management position opened up, I thought that I would be, well, I felt I was more qualified than some of the people that were getting to be managers. Now, that's not necessarily an inaccurate statement, especially at that specific job, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I would have been right for it. Now, from the job that I'm speaking of, which was an inbound call center, I was certainly more qualified than at least half of the management staff that I dealt with. And it's not because they were terrible managers, it's because they changed when they get the position. I mean, they became somebody different. And I noticed that if you go into a specific job and you completely alter the way you are, you're doing things that aren't in your character. And that's basically what I had the problem with, is I knew a couple of people that were on the floor with me, and they were one type of person. And as soon as they became management, they got honestly, they got the entitlement feeling about them, and they stopped being the people that should have been doing the job. They were the ones that walked around with the coffee. They were the ones that did all the jibber jabbering. They became carbon copies of everybody else. I have since been in a management position, and I don't believe I changed, because I still endeavor to be a part of whatever I still endeavored to be a part of what I was managing, because I think that as a manager or a supervisor, if you're not doing what you are managing, then you don't know what you're managing, if that makes sense. So if you are, well, in my case, I became a district manager at a newspaper, a local newspaper. I still participated in the evenings doing the newspaper stuff. Now, I had other jobs that I needed to do, and it ended up being that something I'm a terrible people person. I'm great with assets, though. You give me a schedule full of people and say, schedule them. I can schedule the hell out of them, and it'll work. But as part of that schedule, I am also sticking myself in there, because if I'm not doing what it is that I'm managing, then I'm not connected to what's going on. You can't understand the problems if you're not doing it. So the managers at this inbound call center would completely stop taking inbound phone calls. So yes, they had prior experience to lean back on and say, well, I've taken calls like that. I understand. No, you don't, because you've stopped taking calls. And you may have had let's just use bad calls for instance. You may have had a bad call an hour or a bad call a day, but they come down on you for getting 7, 8, 9 bad calls in a row. So they didn't understand. Moving back to the point of entitlement. Once I got past this, I started looking and identifying the things that made these kids feel entitled. And what I came up with is that we are in a culture that promotes entitlement. There's the guinea pig. The culture around us, we don't, and this is American culture for those of you that are not in the United States, we don't allow spanking anymore. It's child abuse now. I was spanked. I understand that there were repercussions for things that I did. That is how the spanking works. Sit me in a corner, you're just wasting my time for 15, 20 minutes to a half hour, whatever, however long. You're just wasting my time. I don't learn anything, you're just making me bored. Everybody gets a participation ribbon. So if it's a NASCAR race, sure, the person that finishes first wins, but in today's culture, second place through 43rd place still get participation ribbons and everybody wins. No, what that encourages is that nobody wins. And you can't teach this in school like that, because if you take away the winning and losing, when they get into the real world and they start losing, then they don't understand what's going on, because it just reinforces the fact that they think that they're entitled to things. They're not. And they don't understand that hard work earns things. I am friends with a local restaurant owner, and we've had several conversations about this in the past. He had problems at one point hiring people, because the people that were applying and getting hired, he would shortly thereafter find out that they really only wanted to work like 4 hours a month. 4 hours a month. Why? Because mommy and daddy bought their car. Mommy and daddy paid for gas. Mommy and daddy gave them money to go out and eat at restaurants. Mommy and daddy gave them money to go out and smoke dope. Mommy and daddy bailed them out of jail. Mommy and daddy made sure there was plenty of beer in the house so that they could go out and get all their stuff. It's... The coddling in this nation is truly frightening. It's a very, very frightening scenario. Very frightening. And these were real conversations I've had. And I have actually met a couple of these people. They have since been straightened out because, guess what? They're older and they understand what's going on. But the coddling has made this a truly frightening scenario because you can't reason with these people. You can't reason with these people. Hard work. If you explain that hard work earns things, it earns them the respect, they don't understand because they've never worked hard. Everything's been handed to them. Everything's been given to them. Everything has been provided, and they've had no repercussions for doing wrong things. If you fail a test in school these days, failing, by the way, I might add, seems to be at like 50%. Failing in my day was 70%. You got a 69, that was it. You failed. Today, I heard that somebody got a 58 on a test. It was a D. 58? That's barely over half right. It's ridiculous. I need to stop talking about that. The reason that this is a scary scenario is because that these kids, unless they come to this epiphany that they need to start working hard, start making a reputation, start building something from what they are or have, they're going to continue through life with this attitude. And here comes the scary part. They'll be running things soon. These are the kids that are going to be voted into president in the next 10 to 15 years. These are the kids that are going to be your senators and your representatives in the next 10 to 15 years. These are the kids that are running the police departments in the next 10 to 15 years. Now, you might argue that the qualified and the ones that believe in hard work are actually going to be the ones to get these positions. If you take 20 people, put them up for the same 4 jobs. All 20 people are applying for 4 jobs. I guarantee at least one of those people will not be correct for the job because the people hiring for the job don't know them. If you're electing your senator, for instance, do you know what kind of person they are? No. Unless you personally have met them, personally have hung out with them, personally have had conversations with them, you're only going on the propaganda advertising that they're putting out. And that's your idea of them. My senators and representatives, I've seen them in office doing things, but I don't know them. I've had conversations with my two senators, or one senator that's still in office and then one that just left office. It was a meeting, but I've had a conversation with each of them. And having sat across a table from these 2 gentlemen discussing the issue that we were discussing, I got a chance to get a feel for how these people actually were. Now, the guy that's still in office right now, the senator, I believe that he's doing, from my experience, I believe he's doing things the way they should be doing. I mean, he's trying. He's not doing things according to the political party. He's a part of a political party for the funding and he does have some beliefs, but he's not super one direction. He's coming, meeting people, and he understands that there are repercussions in this state for certain things, especially for what we were meeting about. But at least some of these people will get through. You're going to have that snot-nosed high kid in a position of power somewhere that affects you someday, and you're going to wonder, why did we stop spanking? Exactly. As I said, sometime around the age of 30, I woke up. I became aware of a lot of things. I like to also point out to a lot of people, especially those under 30, the ones that like to stay in fashion, the ones that like to keep up with pop culture, the ones that do this, the ones that do that. I used to make fun of the older people that couldn't get over the 70s, for instance, because that was the generation technically before mine. I grew up during the 80s. I am also making fun of the 80s people. That's not the point. The point is, at some point in time, you stop updating. You stop caring what happens. So let's just use clothing, for instance. I used to be very keen on making sure I looked up to date. Now, my transition between that and where I'm at now, which is I just want stuff that fits and is comfortable. My transition was, it was fairly abrupt. I mean, at some point I just stopped caring, and I thought it happened a lot earlier than I see it happening in other people. I don't care. I mean, I have a certain number of pants and they fit. I don't care that one's a brand that's for the hipster kids, and one's a brand for skaters, and one's a brand for cowboys. I don't care. I don't care. If they fit and they're comfortable, I'm going to wear them. The shirts, I used to get stuff with funny sayings on them, and every once in a while I still do. But I'm not out there looking for the quote of the week. You know, the t-shirt memes is the only way I think of them these days. I'm not out there looking for that. Most of my shirts have nothing on them. They're blank because I want them to be comfortable, to fit and be comfortable. I'm wearing this hat because I need to shave my head. Because this beard thing and my head, I'm not going to show you. This beard thing is getting out of control, but I need to shave something off, and, well, the sparsity of the hair that's on top of my head is the thing that's going to go. But at some point, you stop updating. So when I woke up about this entitlement thing around 30, I won't say that it was 30. It's probably after, if I'm being honest with myself, and honest with you here on camera. I started realizing that my experiences that I've had have definitely shaped my work ethic. Now, that statement specifically, I can tell you exactly what year I started understanding that how I'm working right now was shaped by the items, the things that happened in that year. That year was 2006. I started working for the Postal Service in 2006. I started out by having a fairly decent working relationship with the postmaster in the town that I started in. Sometime around the 6-month mark, which would have been the end of 2006, I noticed a definitive change in the way I was treated and the personality of that person. So, at that point, I had to start. I wasn't allowed, and I say that way, I wasn't allowed to call in sick. I wasn't allowed to miss a day. If I was ill, I was in, and I was just working throwing up. And I have worked while throwing up. I have worked with a fever. I have worked with nausea. I have worked in all kinds of terrible situations. I seriously injured my back, and I was still working at that post office. Now, I transferred out of that post office, and since I've left that post office, I have had sort of a policy, since I am still the substitute, of never say no, so that I get as many hours as I can. Now, I'm at the point where I'd like to back off a little because I'm getting absolutely no free time, and I'd like to have a life again, or at least somewhat of a life, and enjoy life. But I realize now that 2006 is when that all started. That is the work ethic I have. It upsets me when someone will use a flimsy or feeble excuse to get out of something when it's something I've not only worked through, but I'm happy to work through. So that's the work specific. I also want to say that I grew up in a time when parents said no. My parents said no to me all the time for things that I shouldn't have had and shouldn't have done. And in hindsight, I shouldn't have had it and I shouldn't have done them. Sometimes I did. I was a kid. Anyway, kids today get timeouts. They get compromises instead of the word no. And they get awards for just showing up. I didn't get awards for just showing up. You either won or you lost. Boo-hoo. You know what? I lost a lot, which is fine. I also play chess, by the way. And that's the only way to learn, is to lose. To lose is to learn. You have to lose. You have to have consequences. Otherwise, the people that will be in charge are going to be scary, scary people to be around, because they don't know, they don't have a work ethic, and they don't know what's wrong with their situation. For those of you paying attention, there was no ad in this. I'd like to bring that up. The reason I bring it up is because another controversial topic, I guess somewhat controversial. That, and I have other things in the works that I want to put on, starting with the next episode, which hopefully will be about my hometown. Yay! We'll find out, though. I'm going to shoot some footage and do some talking over voiceover. I'm going to do some voiceover work and do that. But you can reach me at officiallimeflavored@gmail.com if you want. You can also reach me at trumpshairforpresident@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, limeflavored.com. Same thing with G+. You can just go to limeflavored.com and use the website and just find us that way. If you have any questions, you want to send us a link to a video, you want to be inserted in there, I'm willing to read feedback. I'm willing to take suggestions. I am still working on a guest or two. The original guest that I wanted has, for lack of a better term, ignored me completely. Blew me off, I guess would be a better. And I'm okay with that, because I'm not about bending over backwards for people anymore. I'm going to treat you how you treat me. I wanted to do something with this individual, professionally in a podcast netcast sense, but they don't seem to be interested. So, well, tough for you. It's unfortunate. But I want to thank you for joining me, and we will be back again next Monday. Thank you for showing up. Bye.